Because understanding great literature is better than trying to read and understand yet another business book. On the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, we commit to reading, dissecting, and analyzing the great books of the Western canon. You know, those books, from Jane Austen to Shakespeare, and everything else in between, that you might have fallen asleep trying to read in high school. We do this for our listeners, the owner, the entrepreneur, the manager, or the civic leader who doesn't have the time to read, dissect, analyze, and leverage insights from literature to execute leadership best practices in the confusing and chaotic postmodern world we all now inhabit. Welcome to the rescuing of Western civilization at the intersection of literature and leadership. Welcome to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast. Hello. My name is Jesan Sorrells, and this is the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, episode number 119. With our book today, well, it would have been Macbeth, but I didn't read the material, and this is a good opportunity for me to catch up with you as listeners. So we're going to do something else. We're going to talk about three things here with Tom today. Then we're going to let Tom go, and I've got to go. I've got to go down to Houston. So. And we were talking about Dean Martin before I started recording. So he had that great song back in the day. We're talking about I haven't eaten in about a week. I'm so hungry when I walk, I squeak. Something. And I'm going back to Houston. Dean Martin was great, though. He was part of that Rat Pack.
The Rat Pack. I was saying as before you hit the record button that the Rat Pack, which is fading from the memories of the general population. Right. Not a lot of people remember those guys, but I got to tell you, people who say they love music that don't understand the history of music should probably learn about those guys. I'm just leaving it at that. They were interesting characters.
Well, Sinatra, Joey Bishop, Sammy Davis Jr.,
yeah.
and Dean Martin.
Yeah.
Now, the Rat Pack was not, I must be very clear here, it was not George Clooney and Brad Pitt and Matt Damon.
Yeah.
That is not a Rat Pack. That is a copy of a copy of a
pack of rats.
That's a pack of rats.
No, I'm kidding. I have no problem with any of those guys. Just
Clooney. I found out a weird thing. Apparently, this is a total conspiracy theory. A total conspiracy theory about George Clooney. But I found out this recently. There is a conspiracy theory that George Clooney was being groomed in the 90s, and in the early 2000s to run for president. But the whole reason the CIA couldn't pull it off with him was because he couldn't remember his lines. I don't know how much truth there is to that. It's probably no truth at all, but it's a nice idea. Like he was part of like some MK Ultra program, and that's how he gets to be friends with Obama.
I was reading something recently about, it wasn't George Clooney, it was Russell Crowe. I'm sorry. No, which one of them played Cinderella Man? It was Russell Crowe.
That was Russell Crowe. Yeah.
I was recently reading an article with him talking about when he first met Mike Tyson and how petrified he was. And then how the interpersonal how did he word it? The interpersonal growth of Mike Tyson over the last, say, 10 years has really made him develop into a human being, was the statement.
Well, look. Mike Tyson was a man of war.
And absolutely. Warrior. Absolutely. Flat out warrior.
Yeah. Right. Like he knows everything. He's even said this in interviews. He knew he studied literally everything there is. I mean, that's what D'Amato did with him. That's what his coach did with him. He turned him into this warrior who was going to go out and battle titans, right? Because he was this little dude, right?
Yeah.
Or is this little dude. And you can only, just like Miyamoto Musashi in the Book of Five Rings found, you can only be a warrior for so long. Like you can only cut off the heads of so many people. Before at a certain point, you got to put the sword down, or it just becomes like at the end of Miyamoto Musashi's life, and you find this out in the Book of Five Rings, he was beating people, not with an actual like sword. He was beating people with a wooden sword. He was just smacking them about the head and shoulders. That's how good he was at sword fighting. That's Mike Tyson. Like he's just like, I watched the Jake Paul weigh-in thing like 2 months ago because that fight's never going to happen. But like, I was all excited. but I was watching the way, and he actually put his hands on Jake Paul, and Jake Paul freaked out.
Yeah.
Which is the correct response.
Well, the problem is, I mean, Jake Paul's what, 30 something years his junior, right? So Jake Paul's
Right.
about 20, I think he's 28, 29, something like that. Mike
Something like
Tyson's
that.
58, 58, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Listen, he's not as good as he once was, but he's as good once as he ever was. If Mike Tyson hits him one time in the right spot, he's done. He's
Yeah,
done.
he's done.
One time. He will not be able, but the problem is Mike Tyson has to catch him.
Right. He's got to run around the ring.
He's just going to run around the ring. He's going to avoid him. He's going to stay away from him. It's not even going to be a fight. It's going to be stupid.
Yeah, Jake Paul is 27 years old, not to be confused with Logan Paul, his brother, who's 29 years old. But okay. Yeah, 27. And he was born in 1997, which is insane to me because I graduated that year.
I graduated before that year.
You know what that makes us both old? That's what that makes us.
Experienced.
We're seasoned. We're seasoned citizens.
Exactly. Seasoned citizens solving the world's problems. We're good.
There you go. Okay. And Mike Tyson.
I'm not even sure how we just got from the Rat Pack to Mike Tyson, but whatever.
Well, your pack of rats, George Clooney, weird. Russell. There we go. That's how we wound up there. Okay. Yes. No. One last thing about the Rat Pack. I will say this, and then I'll move on. Those out of those four guys, out of Dean Martin, Frank Sinatra, Joey Bishop, and Sammy Davis Jr. I mean, other than Joey Bishop, who's sort of Pete Best, like in the Beatles, like he was just hanging out. Yeah. He was just happy to be invited. All three of those guys, and people forget about this, they were actually a multi-talented and accomplished in multi-different areas, right? Like they could do movies, they could do songs. Back when all that was like really hard. Like there was no auto-tuning or AI. You actually had to be able to dance. You had to be able to sing. Like Dean Martin could actually sing. I've had a couple of Dean Martin records. Like he actually could sing. Yeah, he drank a lot of whiskey and he smoked a lot of cigarettes, but he gambled a lot, like legit gambled, but he also could sing.
Yeah, I felt the same way when people talk about like another guy that pops up in my brain when they talk about like real talent, like that kind of generational talent was Gregory Hines.
Oh, right. Oh my God, I haven't thought about him in years. Yeah.
He's another guy that I watch him dance and it's literally like magical. Like it's crazy. And I can't think of anybody else that can do what he does in today's modern day, because to your point, if they're filming it and they mess up, they just fix it in post-production.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, I think there's going to be, because Gregory Hines was in the movie from 1985, I think. Yep, I think this is correct. With Mikhail Baryshnikov, White Knights.
Right. White Knights, yeah.
White Knights, yes. Okay, so this is how I remember him. Because I might have seen it on TV when I was like a little kid or whatever. But he was good enough to dance with Baryshnikov. Right. That's how good he was.
Right.
Which is insane to think about. Like,
but people thought of him as an actor, right? Like, but to your point about that multi-layered talent, that was very real back then, and I think that's not quite as real. I saw my wife and I yesterday were up in one of those little New England touristy towns, right? It doesn't matter which one. We were walking through the town center, and it's a bunch of little shops and gimmicky stuff or whatever. But I saw a T-shirt that I really wanted to buy because it had something to do with, like, I missed the days when it was more about the music than the way you looked. Right. So kind of to your point, we had some musicians back in the day, people, just to let you know, they were not very pretty to look at.
No,
we didn't care because the sound of their voice was amazing. And today, to your point with the auto-tune, producers look for looks first, talent second. That's such a travesty.
Well, and that's why, like, who knew? I remember when, this is another ping pong in my head. But I remember when reality shows were a new thing, right?
Right.
And I was like, this will never work. No, I was wrong. It's like one of the top 3 or 4 things in my life that I've just been wrong about. I thought for sure that people would reject that. No, people actually want to see apparently, and we have now almost 30 years of evidence of this, speaking of Jake Paul being 27, his entire media life, other than with the internet, has been spent watching quote unquote real people, but they're really just airbrushed versions of reality, flop around and do outrageous things like the Real Housewives of wherever the hell, like, like, or whatever they're doing, like Survivor's up to season like number 455 or whatever. Like, give me a break. And I thought none of that crap would last because I thought for sure people would cry out for scripted shows, and apparently no one cares.
The thing I find fascinating about the reality TV shows is, like, in the beginning of reality time, it was one of those things that we were like, oh my God, people really do this. People really live like that. Not realizing there was a show on, I think it was like A&E or FX or something like that. That actually, it was like a behind the scenes. It was like a show about reality TV. And they kind of showed you. It was a scripted show, by the way. It was a scripted show, but the whole point was it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of another. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But the concept was they were showing you the way that reality TV works, and that it's not as reality as you think, and a lot of it is scripted. Like, there's a lot more scripting in reality TV than people thought. I thought when that show came out, that was the end of reality TV, because to your point, if we think it is actually reality, we might tune in to watch, because we inevitably, you have to watch the train wreck, right? Like, it's like human nature to watch the downfall of other humans. So we want to watch all that craziness. But as soon as we realized and somebody opened up the curtain, so to speak, and we realized that a lot of that was scripted and it was prompted, and things were like, people were told what to do and what to say to make it look more real. Or I thought for sure that we were going to be like, oh, that's what it is. This is BS. I'm not watching reality TV anymore. But that didn't happen either.
No, that didn't happen either. No. Well, apparently
we all know it's not reality. We still watch it.
Well, apparently reality show TV producers are like the worst people on the planet.
Yes.
Because they're like telling people things and ginning up controversy, and they're amateur.
They're designing backstabbing at its best.
Exactly. And they're probably better psychologists than most marketers are. Like, you could probably, it's insane. Like, instead of hiring a marketing department at your startup, just hire a producer from a reality TV show. You'll be fine. Exactly. It'll produce almost the same outcome. But that level of just like manipulation of other human beings,
crazy.
I don't want to say that there's a special place in hell for people, because I don't like saying where people might go. I really don't, because I don't know where your transcended soul is going to be. I believe you have one. Whether you believe you have one or not, that's a whole other issue. But I believe you have one. I hesitate to determine where that will go. But there has to be some kind of punishment for that.
100% agree. I 100% agree.
There has to be some kind of punishment for that. Yeah, Gregory Hines. Okay, so we wound up with Gregory Hines. By the way, the version of Gregory Hines in the Rat Pack, just to wrap this up, was Sammy Davis Jr.
Oh, for sure.
But, he got almost, and it's really too bad, because Sinatra protected him and kind of got his career sort of going or whatever, because Sinatra was like, hey, I don't care if this is a black guy. Like, this guy's okay. Like, just let him in. Like, what the hell's wrong with you people? Let him walk in the front door, right?
Right.
But then Sammy Davis Jr., being independent, went off and married this Caucasian lady. I think she married some Swedish woman, if I remember correctly. And I think he converted to Judaism or something or whatever. And so I like the fact that, again, from Dean Martin to Joey Bishop, all those guys in the Rat Pack, they were all their own individual characters as well as being talented. And they didn't really care. And this is part of the other thing, because there was of the conformity of the 50s and 60s when they came around. They didn't really care what the broader society really thought about them, which now almost everybody pretends like they don't care what the broader society thinks, but almost everybody conforms. So you can't have the Rat Pack now. That's why I say, like, George Clooney ain't it. Anyway, all right. Glad I got that out of the way. Yeah. So since there's no book or play or piece of material today on the podcast, we're going to do like a mid-season catch-up. Going to talk a little bit about some of the books we've read this year, some books that we've got upcoming, including, interestingly enough, and I did not record this episode with Tom, we've got Lolita coming up. I'm going to cover that book. Oh, yeah, I saw Tom make that face. Yeah, it was an impossible book to read, by the way. And it made me really, really uncomfortable, and it was really, really icky. And I did it with a female co-host, which is I recorded that episode with a female co-host. That's the best. You can't, two dudes can't talk about Lolita. There's just no way. It can't work. It can't work. We just be creepy dudes. And it's just, you can't even see. Tom's not even saying anything. He's like, yep, just keep going. Hey, I'm gonna let him, it's his show. I'm gonna let him run the show. So, but we've got that coming up. We've also got Fahrenheit 451 coming up. We're going to cover that. So next month in September, we're going to cover science fiction books. A great book. I'm actually reading that right now. It's like the third or fourth time I've read Fahrenheit 451 in my life. And I'm opening this up on the podcast episode as well. But it is shocking how preternaturally accurate Ray Bradbury was about everything that's going on now in relation to facts and information and knowledge. And of course, what exists on the other side of a totalitarian state. We're also going to cover Dune, Frank Herbert's big book. I have not watched either of the Dune movies. I know, you can whip me with spaghetti later on. I will watch them after I finish Dune, which I've got about another maybe 10% of the book to go, and then I'll be done. So I'll watch the movies after that. I don't want to be poisoned. And then I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. Yes, I know there was a Will Smith movie a few years ago, and the version that I have has Will Smith on the cover. I checked it out from my local library, and it's got Will Smith on the cover. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? And the only thing that I heard in my head was, oh, hell no. Like we said from Independence Day. That's the only thing I heard in my head.
You did not shoot that green shit at me.
That's right. That's right. That's correct. Except with robots, right? So I'm going to read Asimov. And then upcoming in the future, after we get out of the month of September, let me pull this up. Because there's a few books coming up, which I know Tom is going to be interested in. I think we're going to read Empire of the Summer Moon. We're finally going to hit that book up, which I know Taylor Sheridan, he of Yellowstone fame and all the Yellowstone spinoffs, has gotten a hold of that book, and he's going to do something with it. I have no idea what, so we need to get on that before he releases his show. But we'll do that. Hold on a second. I'm pulling up my reading schedule here. And then let's see. We are also covering a couple of military books are coming up in November as well. And then December is going to be Christmas or the holidays, winter holidays, depending upon how you frame that in your particular zeitgeist. And we'll be reading some books then. Maybe not A Burglar's Christmas, maybe not Willa Cather like we did last year, but we'll definitely be covering something. So, oh, and we got a couple of outliers coming up. So I have a couple of people who wanted to come on and wanted to be guests. And so one of them is really interested, and I'm kind of excited about this, in reading the book with us, covering the book in Endurance, about Shackleton's voyage to the Antarctic. There's a ton of leadership lessons in that, starting with how do you keep people alive when all there is seal meat for 8 months? The winter goes on for 8 months in the Antarctic, and if you're stuck in the ice, you're not going nowhere. And you still got to get the boat out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Pre-modern problems require pre-modern solutions.
for sure.
So yeah, so that's some of what we have coming up. Yeah, so yeah, here we go. Yeah, October, we're going to go. Oh, here we go. I'm very excited about this one. I had forgotten about it until just now. And it's not Empire of the Summer Moon, it's Sitting Bull, His Life and Legacy. That's the one right there. I have Empire of the Summer Moon on my bookshelf, and I just haven't cracked it yet. History of the Peloponnesian War. That's it, with Thucydides. Oh, and All Quiet on the Western Front. Yes. Which I saw the German film that they released on Netflix, or that was released on Netflix now, it'd be almost 2 years ago now. Um, and other than the original film, which was made back in the, I want to say back in the 20s, it's probably the best version I've ever seen of All Quiet on the Western Front. So here's a question for Tom. Why is it so hard to get World War One movies correct? Like 1917 and then All Quiet on the Western Front, and then there's nothing else after that. I can't think of anything that ranks maybe in the top 5 or top 10.
That's a actually great question, because I I think part of it, right, is like the data points that we have are very skewed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because today's as we move forward in human history, we have a lot. It used to be the victors write the story, right? So
Right.
whoever won the battles, where that's what you were reading from. And today, and I probably not much after World War II, you started getting like journalist correspondence embedded with military people, so there wasn't
Mm-hmm.
just the winners. You'd hear winner and loser kind of versions of the battles. And as you go backwards in history, you don't have that. You don't have that unbiased view of, matter of fact type stuff. So I think that's part of it, because my wife and I were just talking about this. She loves period pieces about, King Henry VIII and the
Mm-hmm.
wives and all that stuff, right? And she's a really good student of that era. So when she'll watch a particular show like The Serpent Queen, or Rain, or um whatever, it doesn't matter. The
Mm-hmm.
Tudors, pick your poison. She literally will pick them apart. This one's good, this one isn't, this one's historically accurate, this one sucks, whatever. And part of it is because we take creative liberties with the gaps,
Right. Yeah. No, I
right?
agree
So
with that.
we
Yeah.
we, we can only assume the losers were thinking this, or the loser of this battle was thinking X or Y or whatever. We can make those. There's not a lot of actual recorded history about what was happening on the other side.
Well, there's not a whole lot of fascination, or at least there wasn't until, I think, to your point, the backside of World War II
Right.
up until now, which we now just sort of take it as de rigueur, right? Or, I mean, we're almost 100 years away from World War II. So, like, we're just like, yeah, okay, this is the way it is. But the motives, and you'll see this, I've already started reading Thucydides, right? In the history of the Peloponnesian War, Thucydides, as a historian, tries to lay out what the casus belli, what the reason for um, the Greeks going to war against each other was, right? That's the whole point of the Peloponnesian War. But a historian, well, we didn't have psychologists. So historians were laying out what the psychology was, because psychology didn't exist as a field or as a function. And so what you have now is you've got psychologists going back and looking in history, trying to do the historian's job of trying to find motives inside of people,
Right.
when they didn't write any of that stuff down because they weren't personally curious about any of it.
That's
They
what I'm
just
saying. So we're
did
making
in the world.
assumptions.
Right. Yeah. Like I started watching, I was on a plane recently, to your neck of the woods, actually, flying back from your neck of the woods. And I decided to watch some Apple TV or whatever, because that's the only time I ever watch it. I'm not paying for Apple TV. I'll watch it on the plane.
Me neither.
I forget that. But I watched the first maybe like hour of Napoleon, the Ridley Scott
Was
movie
that
that just came
Joaquin?
out.
Yeah, was
Joaquin
that Joaquin
Phoenix.
Phoenix? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And what struck me about that was, particularly in his relations with the wife, Sophia, I think is her name. Um, Napoleon, the way that Joaquin Phoenix played Napoleon, he played him like quite frankly, like a disaffected beta male who was going out to conquer because he couldn't control his woman, right? But that's the image, that's the message they wanted to get across. Because otherwise, what kind of movie do you make about Napoleon?
Right.
He was a dude who, the way he behaved with such unexamined confidence that to tell that story to a modern audience where reality TV is the thing, and we're like, ooh, we're going to see inside of a person's psychology and what their motives are. And we're going to find out that they're just as twisted and weirdo as we are. Back then, people were just like, no, just go be a world beater. I don't know. Like, this isn't hard. Like, what do I don't need to know. I don't need to know that, like, your mama didn't hug you enough. Like, I don't care. We just go do stuff. Right? Whereas now we want to know the mama didn't hug you enough stuff. We want to know that, like, oh, my daddy took away.
Well, because now we are looking for forgivable attributes, right? And back then they didn't care if somebody forgave them for their attributes. They weren't worried about that.
They weren't worried about that. Like, there's a great scene in the Royal Tenenbaums, where Gene Hackman is being sued by the youngest son, being played by Ben Stiller, right?
Yeah.
And Ben Stiller says, maybe it's Ben Stiller? Yeah, he says, and it's a cut scene. This is brilliant. He goes, Ben Stiller says, he stole, like, bonds out of my safety deposit box when I was like 10. Because that's, like, the reason that he's, like, mad at him. And Gene Hackman goes, and just laugh. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's it. And so the response to that sort of psychological whatever pushes on how we, to your point, pushes on how we see the past. But it also, I think, prevents us from being able to just look at past events just as they were. And World War One, just to sort of close this loop, World War One is such a complicated war. Like, when you read John Keegan's history of World War One, I've said this before on the podcast, and maybe we'll cover that book at some point in time, because it's an amazing book, very dense. But you don't realize just how much of World War One was driven by imperial, not even imperial ambitions from the empires and all that. It was driven by train schedules.
Oh, right.
Like how quickly could you get, people from Budapest to the front over there? And if you could do it faster, because the train was a new technology, if you could do that faster than the Russians could, then boom, you could set up a position, beat the Russians in an open field, and they'd all go home. Because that's how wars had been won, like, for the last, like, 3 centuries in Europe. On that giant flat plane, like, just show up. And everybody's train schedule worked out perfectly for World War One, except what didn't work out was all the stuff that happened after you got the troops where they needed to be. Like, they didn't seem to have a plan for that.
That train schedule was obviously not run by Amtrak.
Well, this is where Hitler, a generation later, who, again, take what you want, he managed to survive World War One. Like, you can't take anything away from that man. Anyone in Iron Cross, like, okay. So this is where he broke up the model, right? This is why he was so disruptive in Europe, because, and I'm not admiring him, I'm really saying this is why he was a disruptive actor, because he looked at all that train schedule nonsense and just went, oh, we have a plane? Oh, we can just blitzkrieg people? Oh, yeah. Do that. do that thing. Go over there and do that thing. And his generals couldn't disagree with him. Even Rommel was just like, yeah, okay, that right. Why would we worry about trains and, like, horses and stuff? So, like, we're just going to invade Poland, and they have a horse army, and we're just going to run over them. And it's weird how the Poles and, well, the Poles, the Russians, the English, and the French were the major powers, of course, on the continent at that point in World War II, had no clue. Like, they were still operating on World War One mindset. Like, oh, we'll just have trains show up and it'll be a trench warfare and it'll be fine. No, he'll be in Paris in a month, marching down the Champs-Elysees. Like, it's going to be a problem.
And Napoleon's not there to save you.
And Napoleon's not there to save you. That's correct. It's edge of Charles de Gaulle, and less said about him, the better. Anyway, point is, I think us trying to dive into those motives, I think, is why we don't get good stuff out of World War One.
Yeah, but again, it's not even just World War One. Anywhere backward like that, I mean, it doesn't even, the 300 or,
Yeah.
like it doesn't, you know what I mean? Like any of those films that start, and it doesn't even be film, books or whatever. That's
Books. Yeah.
you're speculating at that point because
Right.
there's no written history about the other side. Like the other
Right.
side is my one of my favorite comments. I had a friend of mine who was from England, and it was 4th of July, and I had asked him, "Are you celebrating 4th of July in any particular way?" And he was like, "You mean Treason Day?" Like, because again, like I didn't think of it like that. But apparently, there's another whole history about what July 4th, 1776 was that we don't care about. We give it no credibility whatsoever because it's not our version of the history. But
I
I think if we collaborated with a here's my idea.
oh, careful collaboration. You're saying collaboration. Careful.
We're gonna get a film studio in the United States, and we're gonna get a film studio in England. They're gonna collaborate on an actual movie about the 4th of July. Let's see what this looks like.
Well, yeah. Let's see how Cornwallis does in that one and see how he shows up.
I mean, we know the end results, but we don't
We
know
do.
all that. Like to your point, a lot of the stuff about those things are speculated on, and they're assumed, and they're well. I mean, if we actually go talk to the people who lost that war, we might get a
Well,
different
well,
perspective.
like you look at the English with Gandhi. Like they
Yeah,
thought Gandhi was just a rabble rousing schmuck. Like even
right.
Winston Churchill did not like Gandhi. He was like, no, I hate that dude, and I'll cross the street to hit him in his cart. Like if I see him ever. And Gandhi didn't like Winston Churchill either. He's like, well, who? Who are you? I don't leave. Just go.
Yeah.
But it isn't until after World War II that you start to get both those sides. And by the way, we did bring this up. I actually brought this up with DeRollo in my July 4th podcast we talked about, or July podcast, we talked about the Federalist Papers in the U.S. Constitution like we do every year. And look, all those guys who signed the Declaration of Independence, every single last one of them knew that if it didn't work out, they were going to be clapped in chains and sent back to England. Now, DeRollo made the point, and it is a valid one, and I think we probably should consider it. Probably about a third of those guys would have paid their way out.
Yeah. Right.
Thomas Jefferson didn't have any money. Alexander Hamilton didn't have any money at that time. So they probably would have run. They would have cut and run. But like George Washington, he had a little money.
Well, not only that, but he was useful in other ways. They would have figured out a way
Right.
to kind of torture him into submission.
Something. Yeah. But then about another third of them would have rotted in prison. And then the bottom third of them, the guys who like we don't think about, like the founder of Rhode Island, right? Or Benjamin Franklin even might have wound up on the dock, and they might have wound up just executed, because that's basically what they draw and quarter you. Like that's what they did back in the day, you know. And that's sort of how the breakdown would have gone. And then the United States probably wouldn't have been any better than Canada, you know, subsequent years. But yeah, and that's where you get the idea from like Rage Against the Machine that, you know, and others as well, Marxist idea that the only difference between what is it, a person who's celebrating history and a person who's not is whether they won or lost. And Elon Musk pushes back on that and says, well, you know, the losers live long enough to get to write their Wikipedia article, so be careful.
Yeah.
He's not wrong, though.
He's definitely not wrong.
He's not wrong about that. Speaking of which, I did hear recently, this will timestamp this, that SpaceX is actually sending rockets to get the people Boeing put up that are lounging at the space station have been for the last 8 months. Yeah, they've been hanging out. Except the problem is the NASA spacesuits that they have, that they took up, won't fit on the SpaceX rocket that's going to bring them down. And so he's going to send them up some spacesuits too. He's like, yeah, just compress the spacesuit, send them up there with a rocket. It's fine. Thank you for calling me. I appreciate it. You have a good day.
Always here to help.
Always here to help. My God.
Good Lord.
Oh my God, to be a late stage empire at this time. My God, what interesting times. Anyway, so back to the book list. We're also going to be covering a couple of other books that I think would be interesting for our listeners to know about. We'll be covering Huckleberry Finn right around election time with Libby Unger. Fear and Misery of the Third Reich by Bertolt Brecht. I might do that one, or I might do Hannah Arendt and The Banality of Evil. And then in Christmas, or right around the Christmas holiday, New Year's time, with Tom, we're going to be covering The Gift of the Magi and the short stories of O. Henry. Gift of the Magi is a great little story, as well as with Ryan Stout and Momen Kazi, Oliver Twist.
Oh.
Yes, sir. I would like to have another. All right. And then that'll round out year 3 of the podcast. That'll round out our 3rd year. Next year, we're going to do books like Soul on Ice. We are finally going to do, and I've been getting a lot of push for this, but I started with Fahrenheit 451 because to go directly into these books is kind of overdone in our time. But I'm going to go there next year. It's going to be a 1984 and A Brave New World. I'm going to do both of those.
I was wondering about that too.
Yeah, I'm finally gonna bend. Well, because everybody's doing political left, political right doesn't matter. Everybody's pulling from Orwell now to describe our particular, cultural moment. Less so Brave New World, but if you read like high intellectual stuff, they're pulling from Huxley like left and right, right? And they're both books that are so, along with Animal Farm, so deeply embedded into the slipstream of post World War II thinking about what we need to avoid with totalitarian tendencies and leaders, that I have to think of a different way to get into those books than just the common way. And it's taken me like 4 years to figure out how to get into both of those. So you may pick your book, you may pick your poison. You have time to think about it. You got like 6 months time to think about it. It's not until like June of next year. So good to go. And then, we're going to do Eldridge Cleaver, Soul on Ice. So I've been wanting to read that book for a long, long time. And based on the recommendation of another individual, we're going to do Stranger in a Strange Land by Robert Heinlein next year as well on the podcast. So got good stuff coming up.
Very cool.
Books just keep on rolling. I will never run out of content. I will never run out of books. It's just
you should never be able to.
But, oh my god, it's going to be endless. Speaking of changes and upcoming things, so if you're watching the video version of this podcast, if you're listening to the audio version, you probably will hear minor differences. But if you're watching the video version of this podcast, you will note that my background has significantly changed over the course of the last few episodes, because I'm actually moving out of my house, which I had a studio in my home office. I am relocating that, and I'm relocating to a different house. I won't tell you where. It's in an undisclosed location. I don't need you people coming to find me. Thank you. And so I'm moving out of my house, moving my studio, and I'm actually working with a local organization, which I'll talk more about this a little bit later on. We are finalizing building a standalone podcast studio inside of a co-working space. So I was actually over there this weekend putting in some of the final touches. We're getting ready to move in the equipment. And then the video version of this podcast will, for want of a better term, will explode. It'll be kind of amazing. We'll have our own dedicated podcast studio with dedicated mics, dedicated computer equipment. Oh my gosh, it'll be kind of a little bit like a Joe Rogan setup. We'll have a screen where I can bring in people live, like Tom, and can bring them in live, and we can look up information. I can have my producer there, look up information, research things, fact check ourselves. It's going to be great. It's going to be kind of amazing. So I'm very excited for that, and we'll be able to have live guests. We love having Tom on Zoom, and whenever he comes down to the geographic area that I'm in Texas, we will have him live in the studio, which will be amazing. But we will be able to do live guests now and do more local guests who are within like an hour radius from where we're at. So show's about to grow. It'll be very exciting.
Exciting times.
Yeah, are you excited about podcast studio? I mean, it won't impact you. You're still in your house, but
I'll still be on Zoom. But I'm excited about the idea that I think that does bring it to another level. And when you bring it to that other level, it increases the audience, it increases the exposure. Like there's a lot of other things that happen. So the fact that I'm still going to be on Zoom doesn't hurt that fact. So I'm pretty excited for you. I think it'll be really good for you.
Yeah. You haven't really lived until you've put on 2 layers of flat black enamel on a Saturday. You haven't really lived till you've done that.
It's my least favorite thing to do around the house is paint. I just hate it. I just hate it.
So my wife never lets me paint. Never. I am banned from painting the house. She does all the painting. We painted a door once. And then we got engaged, and then we got married, and then that was it. That's the last time I painted in my house. That's the entire story, folks. That's the whole thing. That's the narrative structure. The beginning, the middle, and the end. Now, I was painting this weekend for the podcast studio with the partner of mine who I've gone in on this, who owns the co-working space. And my wife goes, "He must really love you." You paint the studio. Like, I can't possibly screw it up. It's black paint.
It's black paint. Yeah.
It's black paint. I can't. There's no way to mess this one up. So, and we're going to put up the sound panels and all of that. And we'll actually be able, I think the room will be the studio size, and it's only 9 by 13. So it's relatively small, but it's the beginning of our much larger ambitions to potentially not only produce the leadership lessons from the Great Books podcast out of that space, but we'll also be producing the Growth Craft podcast, which I also partner with Tom on. We'll be producing some local podcasts out of that space as well. We've already got soft offers from a couple of local brands here, and I'll be doing a lot of podcast production, off-air podcast production, and maybe some on-air voiceover stuff. And we'll also be able to do voiceovers because it's a soundproof room, so we'll be able to do voiceovers. And even, I love this, we'll even be able to do audiobooks. So I will finally not have any excuses of my children or dog running around in the background. I will finally do the audiobook version of 12 Rules for Leaders, The Foundation of Intentional Leadership, my third book, which I've been promising an audio version of for literally years now. And I will actually do it because I have a studio, and now I have no more excuses.
Yeah.
So there you go. Exciting times.
That is exciting. It's very cool. Very cool stuff. Cool.
Well, and it's a great opportunity also for me to, my partner and I, to give back to the local community, and to get young creatives in. And, producing a half-hour show for a young creative that they do maybe once a month or twice a month or even 4 times a month is not going to be hard. And we'll eventually hire a couple of production assistants and start to scale this sucker. So it's going to be good.
So 10 years from now, we'll have Jesan's production studio, Jesan's production company. It'll be just a big production company.
Well, long term, it's interesting that you say that. So long term, we want to bring in videography, we want to bring in video production, and we want to bring in photography as well, and maybe even graphic design. And for the local town that I have, there's a marketing company that does some of that, but they do it in just the narrow band of marketing. That's really how they offer it. But once you expand outside of marketing, then you're talking about creatives that are basically needing a space to work. And so that's fundamentally what we would be offering, or what we are going to begin to offer down the or that no, that's a seed that we're planting so that we can offer that down the road. But yeah, 10 years of an overnight success, right?
Absolutely.
It's never not 10 years. It's never less than 10 years.
Nobody. Every overnight success I've ever heard of has a 10-year story to get there. I've never heard anybody that was legitimately an overnight success.
Hello. So I'm going to do some shilling here, and hopefully this will be a pause in our riveting conversation for you. I have an offer for you. My most recent book is 12 Rules for Leaders, The Foundation of Intentional Leadership. It's available in paperback, hardcover, or as an ebook on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and any other place you order books. Now, in this book, I address the 12 leadership areas that I have found leaders need to be the most intentional in to be the type of leader followers actually want to follow. From establishing a foundation of leading teams through managing conflict effectively, all the way through leading teams through change, knowing what to do and why to do it can help readers, like the ones listening to this show, become better leaders. Look, reading this book and living it is like getting coaching from me directly without having to pay my full coaching rate. Head on over to leadershiptoolbox.us. That's leadershiptoolbox.us, and scroll down the homepage and click on the Buy Now button to purchase in hardcover, paperback, and Kindle format on Amazon 12 Rules for Leaders, the foundation for intentional leadership. And that's it for me. Now back to the show. Even Taylor Swift, like weirdly enough, like apparently she's been grinding on things forever before I ever heard of her.
Right.
I just heard her last year. I had no idea who she was.
No, a year ago. Stop it. Really?
No, I'm not. I'm dead serious. I had no clue who she was.
Oh man, no, she's been very big, very popular for quite a lot longer than 1 year. But I will tell you that she started her career, her very first start, she was like 10. Like when the very first time she was ever like on screen or like playing her guitar in front of an audience or something like that, and like if you go back, look up something like from her, I forget again, it might have been 10 or 12, something like that. But then when she hit her first, like when she became like a big sensation or whatever, it was 12 years later. Like it took her 12 years to grow that audience. That did not happen overnight.
No, and you know what? And I'm not minimizing her, taking anything away from her. I'm just saying, like, that wasn't she wasn't on my radar because I'm not really her audience, you know.
I get that. I'm not her audience either. I just know who she is. And I'm not a fan of her. I would definitely not classify myself as a fan of hers. But one thing I do appreciate about her is that she is very smart when it comes to very particular things. She is very smart when it comes to her own branding, when it comes to her own business practice. Like she's very smart handling herself.
I will. So here's the thing that's interesting to me. People think that the art is the thing, just like people think, like marketers. Some marketers think that the marketing is the thing, or some salespeople think the sales is the thing, or even like in my space, some people think that leadership development or organizational development is the thing. And if you just noodle down enough on that thing, somehow money will come to you. But the thing is, you have to care at least minimally about all of the other stuff around that and get good at that so that you have the freedom to do that thing. And a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of creatives don't understand that. Which is why the whole like, I'm going to teach you how to be a better coach, or I'm going to teach you how to be a better podcaster, which is sort of where I'm at, right? Or I'm going to teach you how to be a better this or better that market exists because you have all these creators that they just want to do their creative thing. And they don't want to have to think about marketing or finance or sales or any of that kind of stuff.
It's one of the reasons that partnerships are so important in the startup world, right? If you're starting something out and you're by yourself, the likelihood of success is lower than if you have a couple, like a partner or a couple of partners. Because you have different skill sets. If you're partnering with somebody if their strengths and weaknesses are opposite of yours, you have a much higher chance of success.
Well, and you have to be careful who you pick as your partner. I mean, Seth Godin said this infamously years ago in a book. I can't remember which book he wrote it in. And he might have said it, and he might have written it on his blog, so it doesn't matter where I heard it or read it. But he said, you can date a whole lot of people, but you only get married once. And dating a partner is like getting married, and you only really want to do that, one time. But he said the challenge is in a startup, or if you're a creative like a Taylor Swift type, you've been struggling and grinding for so long and no one's giving you a pat on the back, and you've just done it. And then all of a sudden someone comes along and says, hey, I've got all this money and I think you're a genius. And you just go, oh, thank you. And you sort of collapse into their arms. And that might not be the best thing for you to do, because that savvy there of being able to judge, is this person going to be a good partner long term? And, the person that I'm partnering with on the podcast studio, he's a great guy. It's his side gig. He's doing other things. So he wants to make it work for sure. But he already had, sort of the top line revenue piece going before I showed up with the podcast piece. And so we've really been good at beginning to define our roles very clearly, like who's the hardware, who's the software, what is this thing here, what's this thing there. And now we're in the space of sort of formalizing that on paperwork, but it took like a year and a half of us talking to figure that out. And I've done partnerships with people before where I jumped too early and it wound up being a mess at the end. And, you have to let that person go or it doesn't work. And then I've also had the situation where these people say they're a partner or they're your partner, but um, they're not in the day to day with you on the regular on some projects. They'll have an opinion at the end about the project, but on the day to day, they're not there. And that's okay because they trust you to do the thing, but at the same time, it creates a different kind of dynamic. So I just think that that's something people have to, leaders in particular, core creatives have to really look out for. And Taylor Swift is probably a really good example of that. Not taking anything away from her. Okay. Well, we talked a lot about a lot of things today in the podcast. Well, we have 9 minutes. So here's something that's been popping up on my radar. We're a book podcast. It's also a leadership podcast. And I want to float this by Tom, see what he thinks about this. So I've been reading in sort of high-end substacks about literary substacks that I follow about the lack of young male writers, contemporary young male writers. So, and this is something, by the way, that I've been noticing for the last 10 years. So when I go into Barnes and Noble, the vast majority of new contemporary fiction that I see, or even contemporary nonfiction that I see, is written by women. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that this is a bad thing or a good thing. I'm really noting it as a data point. Now, the back catalog of the back catalog of fiction is dominated by men. Stephen King, John Grisham, names that you know, right? But new male writers coming up, I see very little of. And so I've been following a lot of these substacks that are talking about this. And there's various reasons given why this is a challenge. But what's really interesting is the lamenting about young male minority writers not coming up, particularly young straight male minority writers not coming up. Because if you're LGBTQ, there's a space for you. But if you're a straight male minority writer writing in a nonfiction space about the raw vulnerability of, I don't know, your identity or whatever, or dealing with women or any of the kind of stuff that maybe Ernest Hemingway would have written about in A Movable Feast, which is a book that we covered on the podcast. If you're writing any of that kind of stuff, the dearth, that means a lack of those types of voices, is something that is now being lamented. And it's interesting because the publishing industry is so narrow and insular that it tends to focus on things that 99% of other people don't care about. But this one's really interesting because I've noticed over the course of my life, and this is why we read older books. We do read some contemporary books, but we tend to read older books on this podcast. I mean, Shakespeare, there you go. That the kind of sort of male-oriented writing that you would see in the 18th century or even the 19th century just doesn't, or even the early 20th century, just doesn't exist anymore. It's just not there. Like I don't think Ernest Hemingway would be published today if he were writing at 20.
Yeah.
I think he would just fade into the background and like play video games in his house. Like I don't think he or put on VR headset from like Meta and like go to Paris that way.
Ernest Hemingway playing video games. Just see what the image in my head
now. So with the last few moments that we have today, what do you think of that? What do you think of that idea? Because I've been reading a lot about this, and it's sort of has been a lament. And I want to actually pull up a specific quote that I saw while you're thinking about this. But do you have any thoughts on this?
The funniest part is I actually didn't really think about it too much, and I don't know why I didn't think about it too much. But I mean, you're right. I don't think there's any argument against what you're saying. I don't. Is it partly because the world has heard enough from men and it's time to you know
I will bring this up from a Substack called Crowdsource, Wisdom of the Crowds. You can find it on Substack. I'm not recommending you subscribe. I'm just saying this is where I'm pulling it from. The way the source is there. And Crowdsource describes itself on Substack as a weekly guided tour of the latest intellectual disputes, ideological disagreements, and national debates that piqued our interest or inflamed our passions. Which I think that's kind of quippy. And maybe Hemingway wouldn't play video games. Maybe he would just write a Substack. I mean, that might be the direction he might go in.
He'd have a Reddit or a Quora.
Yeah, something like that. Quora. Forgotten about that thing. Speak your, and so the first bolded headline is "Speak Your Young Male Truth." Last July, and I'm quoting directly from this, our own Christine Emba, apparently writes for this Substack, shook things up with a major report about the American male who, quote unquote, struggled to relate to women. They didn't have enough friends. They lacked long-term goals. Some guys, including the ones I once knew, just quietly disappeared, close quote. You'd think a societal bumper crop of mopey men would at least have plenty of opportunity to turn their aimless energy into angsty art. Why has the opposite happened? This is the question Kate Tobin asked in a big essay last month. There's a click on a link there. I'm not going to click on that. And the quote there, I guess, is the money quote from Kate Tobin says, or KT Tobin says, quote, young men appear to be glaringly absent from the contemporary canon of popular authors writing about sex and intimacy. And then there's another quote in here from Andrew Borgia, who is where I picked it up from. And he says, it's fear that keeps young men from writing such books. That vulnerability, that rawness that people seemingly want may very well sound too rough, cringy, uncultured, un-PC, unwoke, or whatever the hell you would like to call it, close quote. And he actually believes that mainstream publishers do not actually want such books.
Interesting.
I don't often talk about this because this is deep inside baseball, but I self-published 3 of my books, and I'm probably going to self-publish the 4th because I didn't think I could get a book deal. I didn't think a guy like me could trot a 60,000 word manuscript up to some literary editor in New York and be like, hey, I got all these podcasts, I got all these tweets, I got all these blog posts. Do you want to publish me? Like, I didn't think that was good. I didn't think that pitch was ever going to work.
Yeah.
Now you're in sales.
I've been asked several times about why I haven't written a book yet, and actually, you're exactly what you just said was why. First of all, I have no interest, urge, or desire or energy to self-publish, and I know, at least I feel similar to you. Who's gonna publish me of all? Like, no one's publishing me. Come on,
right?
Like, not when they got in every genre that I would potentially write in, whether it be sales or marketing or business development or revenue, whatever. There's some sort of guru out there that's already published that's crushing it, right? Like the Grant Cardones of the world and whomever, right? Like, so they don't need another one. They just don't need it, and that's my philosophy. That's why I've never written a book. I have no urge to be
what if you
in that world.
What if you wrote a book from your quote unquote lived experience? So you identify as a Native American, you have a lived experience there, because that's what people want. Well, no, I'm sorry. That's what literary agents push to publishers, right? So when I imagine myself walking up to a literary agent with this face and this voice, like, there's a certain set of experiences they're going to assume I'm going to bring to the table, and then I just open my mouth and start talking, or they read the manuscript and it's like, oh, that's not, oh, we don't, you're complicated and nuanced. Oh no, we weren't looking for that. We were looking for something else that we could like put in like Barnes and Noble in the front cover, in the front window.
There's a new movie coming out. Oh man, what is the name of this? I really want to see it. It's about a black author, and the publisher literally says, you're not black enough. Like, you have to write more black. And he's like, what? Like,
is it American Fiction? Is that the one you're talking about?
I really want to see it. I forget who's in now. I even forget who's in it, but like, I remember seeing the preview at one of the movies. I think I was at Deadpool 3 or something. I don't know, whatever. Which, by the way,
yeah, American Fiction with Jeffrey Wright.
Yes,
that's the movie you're thinking of. Yes,
and that's not out yet, right? It comes out soon.
No, it came out September 8th of last year, 2023.
Oh, so
Um,
I might have saw a preview for it coming into streaming service or something like that then.
yeah. Yeah,
But
and I'm just going to read this off of Google. It says, Monk is a frustrated novelist who's fed up with the establishment that profits from black entertainment that relies on tired and offensive tropes. To prove his point, he uses a pen name to write an outlandish black book of his
yeah,
own, a book that propels him to the heart of hypocrisy and the madness he claims to disdain.
yeah.
Which
I
is
can't
probably the direction I would have gone in. I would have been like, "Oh, this is what you want? Oh, here we go."
because to your point though, it's like they saw a black author and they just expected a certain thing. And when he didn't
Right.
write that way, and he's like, F it, I'm gonna go do something like this. And it just looks like it looks like it's a very good movie.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I didn't realize it was a year ago because I would have already watched it. Trust
Yeah.
me. I thought it was coming out soon.
Well, would
didn't.
you be willing to play that kind of game? I wouldn't play that game. That's why I self-published, because I don't want to play that game.
No, I would
But
not.
like my fourth book is going to be a contemporary cultural critique kind of book, and it is going to be nuanced, and it's going to be, I'm publishing parts of it on Substack right now. I mean, it's, the 10,000, 12,000, 15,000 word, essay, sort of Joan Didion cross with James Baldwin kind of thing. But I did write a book proposal for it, trying to think about, could I get a literary agent to publish this? And after talking with a couple of other people who were in the industry, they were like, I don't know, maybe you could, but you're in a post George Floyd world. You can't
Right.
get published. And I'm like, that's
Exactly.
insane. I'm the person you people are looking for.
Right.
Tom is the person you people are looking for. like, like, and you're telling me that you're telling Tom he's not native enough? Like, is that really what you're telling Tom? Like, really? And the person, by the way, who's making this judgment, the vast majority of literary agents are, and this is not a judgment, this is merely, again, a data point, Caucasian women. They are the gatekeepers.
Middle aged women, by the way.
I wasn't going to bring that up, but sure. We're not going all JD Vance here. I'm not going down that road.
No, we're definitely not going down that road.
Not going down that road. And you don't know what that is, you can go Google it. But my point is, when you have that on the one hand, but then on the other hand, you're lamenting the lack of those voices. You're pointing out a tension, but you're not presenting any solutions for how to solve it. You're just pointing it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to answer your question, no, I would not play that game.
Right.
I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, that was a short answer to a long question. All right. I think we covered everything. Oh, well, hey, what has been your favorite book that we've covered so far during this year? Because you've been on several episodes. And you've covered everything from, we've covered everything from, oh gosh, just looking at the list here. We talked about War and Peace, which is our most downloaded episode, by the way, this year. That is the most downloaded episode that we've done. Little Women, To Kill a Mockingbird. I know that was and we're going to release some video clips on that coming up fairly soon here. Let's see.
That is one of that was probably my favorite, only because it was also one of my, it's probably in the top 3 of my favorite books of all time.
Yeah.
It was To Kill a Mockingbird. It was outstandingly written. Even the movie adaptation was good. Like that,
Right.
that was the other thing too that was just rare. Like it's rare you find that the movie adaptation of a book is so well done that it's, that the characters in the movie really make you feel like they're playing the actual characters in the book. Doesn't
Right.
really happen very often, at least, especially not today's world. Which, by the way, if you're going to go read and then watch Dune, it's probably one of the few occasions where I think more modernly that has happened better than in the past.
So which version?
The characters in the movie are actually believable to be characters in the book.
Oh, okay.
That doesn't happen very often in modern day adaptations. Sometimes you watch the movie and you're like, that's not what I was thinking was the book character. Like you don't really put the two together. I think Dune did an all right. I think they did an all right job with it.
Okay. So that Timothy Chalamet kid does fine.
Yeah, I think he does an all right job. I'm not saying it's outstanding. I'm saying it's
Sure.
not Gregory Peck, but I
It's
think
not
it
Gregory Peck or Gregory Hines or any of those guys, but
right. At least I think it's at least believable though. I
yeah.
think mentally you can make the connection to the two. I think
Okay.
which is more than you can say about a lot of recent book to movie types of scenarios.
Well, and it's interesting because I think we are in a weird cultural inflection point where, and this ties into the contemporary author too, where like we would be remiss to not say that we don't have a conformity of voices clustered around particular cultural areas in our world, particularly in America. Like we
Yeah.
would be remiss to say that. We would be lying and we'd be confusing ourselves. And I'm not saying this is a good thing or a bad thing. Again, it's one of those data point things. We do have a conformity of voices clustered around certain areas, right? And that's reflected by who the gatekeepers are in those areas. So if I want to make a movie about Fahrenheit 451, and again, I have no problem with Michael B. Jordan as an actor. It's zero problem with that, right? But we got to race swap the character in Fahrenheit 451. Like we have to, because the current cultural gatekeepers demand that. You can't do a close to original version of what Ray Bradbury was doing, even though, by the way, Ray Bradbury never brings up his race
Oh,
at all in
right.
the book.
Yeah.
Ever. He doesn't bring it up at all. As a matter of fact, where he brings up race in the book, interestingly enough, is with the girl Clarissa, who winds up disappearing. And that becomes sort of the motive to move Montauk forward. But Montauk's race is never mentioned. So Montauk could have been a black guy, or he could have been an Asian guy, or he could have been anybody, right?
Right.
Now, contemporarily, we say, well, that gives us freedom to da-da-da-da. Okay, all right, fine, whatever. But that's the clustering, right, that we have. And so to do a pure, but we also have the other tension on the other side of that is, and people don't want to acknowledge this, but when you have that sort of clustering around certain cultural mores, certain things you can say and certain things you can't, to back to that quote about being un-PC and unwoke, like if you want to get interesting writing, you have to say things that are against all that cultural clustering. And you're not getting that. If those voices just aren't showing up, then who's writing? And this is my major problem with like Star Trek these days and Star Wars. Who's writing? Like who are they writing for? They're writing for the cultural conformists, and they're clustered in their particular area, right or wrong. That's what they're doing. And so they're missing out on all these other people that may want to see a pure adaptation of whatever the information is, or just original writing that
I'm,
might be like interesting.
I'm starting to understand why you like Curb Your Enthusiasm so much. It's now it's starting to settle in now.
I'm looking for the voices that are antithetical to that cultural clustering. Yes,
Yeah,
and Larry David was one of those. Is one of those
totally,
voices.
totally opposite. Right.
Oh my god, so much, because you know what? He looks at those voices and he goes, "Really? That's uh, 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 I don't think so.
Yeah. I'm not gonna do it like that. I'm
I'm
not
not
gonna
gonna do
say
it.
it like that. I'm just gonna wing it. Like that's
Why do I have to bring something to the party? You invited me.
yeah,
What are we
right,
doing?
right.
What? I'm not enough. I got to bring this bottle of wine and some like bread too. Like, I'm bringing
What was the other
gifts.
one? Ben Stiller when Ben Stiller invited him to his birthday party and said no gifts, and he brought no gift, and everybody else brought a gift, and he's like, but he said no
He said no
gifts.
gifts.
He said no gifts. If you want to give, tell me to bring a gift. If you're telling me not to bring a gift, I'm not bringing a gift. Like I he goes, asking for no gift is just the polite thing to do. You're supposed to bring a gift. No. If he says no gift, I'm not bringing a gift. Like that, I'm with
Right.
him on this one. Say nothing. Say nothing. I'll bring a gift.
Right.
Tell me not to bring a gift. Guess what? I'm not bringing a gift.
I'm following you. You said I don't exist in your head. You said something. It fell out your mouth. And
Right.
then you get all mad when I do what the fell out your mouth was. Oh, well, you're supposed to understand these other. Who drove my wife crazy when we were first married? I guess I'll close on this. Drove my wife crazy when we were first married because I would often say, when we would do these social gatherings and have these little social interactions, I was like, who had the meeting that decided all this social stuff? Because I wasn't at that meeting. No one invited me. No one asked my opinion. They just sort of expect me to go along. Why do I need to go along? It doesn't. Well, it'll make everything run smoother. Everybody knows. Who is everybody? Who are people?
Yeah.
But that is what Larry does. Larry's sort of a cathartic, and I have had several times in my adult life what I call Larry David moments when I am in a social situation and I just go, no, I'm not. You said this one thing over here, and you said it just to be saying things and putting error in the world, when in reality you could have said, to your point, you could have said nothing. And we would have all been fine. But no, you said something and now you want me to behave this way, and I'm just not going to.
Right, because we do follow a certain social norm, right? Like there aren't social norm. If somebody invites you to a birthday party, you just assume you're bringing a birthday gift. Like there are certain social norms, but when words come out of your mouth, you change the dynamic of that and you create your own environment. And if you're doing that, then you shouldn't be upset if the environment comes to fruition.
Like, right, and this is the problem that Larry has. People want to get upset, but they don't want to accept responsibility.
My last birthday, I was Ben Stiller. I said, first of all, I don't like celebrating my birthday anyway. I didn't want a party. I don't like it. I don't like the attention drawn on me in that sense. Sales and marketing, sure. I'll draw the attention to myself all day long. Podcast, absolutely. I'm not afraid of the camera, but I don't like my birthday. For whatever reason, I just grew up not liking my birthday.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, well, I have to have a birthday for you. It's this particular number now, and everyone wants a party, blah, blah, blah. And I said, fine, but tell them, do not bring gifts. I do not want gifts. And so she was adamant, do not bring a gift. Tom said, do not bring a gift. And this is and she literally, because she watched Curb Your Enthusiasm, this is not a joke. This is not like she went through this. There was like 5 lines. This is not a joke. This is not do not bring a gift. I'm going to say it 3 times here so you understand. Tom does not want gifts. He just wants you to be present.
Right.
And out of everybody that showed up, there were 2 people that actually brought gifts. One of them was a little bit a little bit older. So I didn't get upset. That's their prerogative as my elder. They're my elder. I said, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. 2 of them, that was it. Everybody else just showed up and had a party. And I was like, fine, I'm fine.
There you go. Right.
And by the way, I had zero upsetness to myself that they didn't bring gifts.
Right.
I would have been more upset if they bring gifts.
Exactly. And the other thing is Larry is surrounded by all these people that don't take him seriously. So like from Cheryl all the way. Oh my, Susie's the worst, but Cheryl.
Susie's Jeff's wife, right?
Yeah, Susie's Jeff's wife. Yeah,
oh he's God, stuck with that. Him. She hates him.
She hates that woman. She hates that guy so much. She regrets her choices so much, and yet she made that choice. And she's not going anywhere. She's going to ride and die that sucker, but she hates her choice. It's amazing how he wrote that character. But Jeff Garlin. This is where Jeff is brilliant, because Jeff can actually tell Larry, well, look, all these people are thinking these things and are saying these things, and this is the reason why they're saying these things. Do you want to play? And Larry's like, no, I don't. Yeah. So I understand what you're saying. I get the explanation. I just don't want to play. And then Jeff, to his credit, he goes, okay, that's fine. I'll ride along with you. Let's see where this social experiment goes.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm a huge Curb guy. I guess the male version of Susie on that show would be Bob Eisenstein, who just, oh my God, like the things that Marty Funkhauser, the Funkhauser does. I'm just like, wow, dude. Okay, like Larry said, don't do this thing, or Larry said you needed to behave. And in later seasons, Larry starts telling Marty there's certain ways to behave. And so he'll turn it on and turn it off. Like there's certain ways to behave here. And if you don't behave these ways, I can't help you. And so he knows what the social structures are. We know. It's just independent thought. Independent thought is what we actually want to cultivate here. So you actually get creativity, and conformity is killer. Anyway. I do like that show. I'm glad you're coming along. I'm glad the light is finally like the sun is like rising on why I'm like a huge fan of that.
Oh no, I'm starting to understand why you're a fan. I I just don't. I quite honestly, I find it a little boring. I think maybe it's just because it reminds me of my life, but it might be just because it's, I actually, it's not, it's not that funny. It's like, and it's not, and it's, I don't know. I, to your point, I do understand why, I'm starting to understand why other people like it.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. And there could be things.
My wife loves it. She thinks it's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, as I've said before, as I've said on the War and Peace podcast, I should have your wife on. Like, why am I talking to you?
I don't know. I have no idea. You should be talking to her.
All right. Well, I think we're done talking here. I think we're good. I think this is our mid-season show. We actually should do one of these every year. I mean,
we mid-season decompression.
Decompression, yeah. So we could like turn the corner, around this. I mean, we didn't really resolve anything, but that's okay. And we didn't really talk about leadership, but that's okay too. Well, no, actually we didn't. We talked about the Rat Pack and everything else, but we didn't talk about leadership, but that's okay. So yeah, we're gonna close here. All right. So you've been listening to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast, and with that, well, Tom and I, we're out. Thank you for listening to the Leadership Lessons from the Great Books podcast today. And now that you've made it this far, you should subscribe to the audio version of this show on all the major podcast players, including Apple iTunes, Spotify, YouTube Music, and everywhere else where podcasts are available. There's also a video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Like and subscribe to the video version of this podcast on the Leadership Toolbox channel on YouTube. Just search for Leadership Toolbox and hit the subscribe button there on YouTube. And while you're doing that, leave a 5-star review if you like what we're doing here on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Just go below the player and hit 5 stars. We need those reviews to grow, and it's the easiest way to help grow this show. And tell all your friends, of course, in leadership. By the way, if you don't like what we're doing here, well, you can always listen to another leadership show. There are several other good ones out there. At least that's what I've heard. All right. Well, that's it for me.